Welcome to today's deep dive. You ever feel like you're just going through the motions, kind of stuck on autopilot, missing that sense of real purpose?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Well, that's what we're looking at today.
Okay.
This idea of verticality. It's about the connection between our everyday personality
Right.
and this deeper essence of our soul.
Interesting.
So the lecture that we're using for this deep dive,
Yeah.
it calls this feeling horizontal stagnation.
Ah, right.
Like we're moving through life, but only on this flat plane.
Hmm.
And we're missing out on this whole other dimension,
I see.
this depth.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that feeling of just being stuck on the surface.
Right.
Yeah.
And the lecture uses the term disciple to describe someone who's on this path of self-discovery.
Okay.
Not in like a specifically religious sense or anything,
Gotcha.
but just as someone who's seeking that deeper connection.
Right.
So how do we even begin to tap into that? How do we
Well, the audio really emphasizes self-observation as like the key. It's not just about knowing a bunch of stuff
Right.
or having all this information. It's about really turning that awareness inward.
like holding up a mirror
Exactly.
to your own thoughts and actions and everything?
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like we become aware of the program
Mm-hmm.
that's running in the background of our minds.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
But the speaker cautions us, though,
Oh.
that this awareness is deeper than just
Mm-hmm.
like knowing about systems or just gathering information.
So what makes self-observation so crucial then?
Right. Right.
Why is that so important?
Mhm.
Well, you can think about it this way.
Okay.
You could read every self-help book out there,
Mhm.
go to all the workshops, even study psychology.
Right.
But true awakening,
Yeah.
it requires something more.
Okay.
It's about recognizing the thought patterns and behaviors that are keeping us stuck in that horizontal plane, you know?
So it's not just about acquiring knowledge. It's
Right.
about applying it to our own lives. The lecture warns us about falling into negative thought patterns, especially when we lack this self-awareness.
Okay.
It uses the example of conspiratorial thinking.
Right.
But I think that that principle applies to
any kind of negativity.
any kind of negativity that we get stuck in, you know.
Absolutely, yeah.
So there-
rabbit holes.
You've never noticed yourself kind of going down those
Oh, all the time.
Right.
It's so easy to get trapped in those cycles
Yeah.
without even realizing it.
Totally.
And the lecture highlights how these negative thoughts, they trigger negative emotions, which
Right,
can create a negative feeling, and then that shapes our perception of reality and
True.
leads to suffering.
It's like a downward spiral.
Yeah, it is.
And we all experience negative thoughts and emotions, but the speaker suggests that becoming aware of them is that first step to breaking free.
Right. It's not about denying the negativity.
Yeah.
It's about understanding it.
Understanding its role
Hey.
and choosing a different path.
Yeah, I like that.
So the audio suggests that this shift from negativity to positivity,
Yeah.
it's not just mental.
Yeah.
It actually affects our vibrational frequency.
What do you make of that?
That's such an intriguing concept.
Yeah.
It suggests that our thoughts and emotions,
Mm-hmm.
they have a real impact on our being.
Wow.
Like we're emitting a certain energy into the world.
Interesting.
Yeah, and the lecture says that positive thoughts and emotions, they connect us to unseen forces of good.
What are these invisible forces, though?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Something to ponder as we keep going with this deep dive.
Yeah.
The lecture also introduces this idea of a dual nature of the mind.
Okay.
We have the concrete mind, which is responsible for everyday tasks and routines.
Right, right.
And then we have the abstract mind,
Okay.
which is the domain of the soul, of ideas, insights, higher reasoning.
So how do those two work together?
Well, the speaker uses this analogy of a light bulb. The filament represents an idea,
Uh-huh.
and the light that fills the room represents the thought.
Oh, I see.
Imagine a dark room, and you flip a switch,
Yeah.
and suddenly it's illuminated.
Powerful image.
It highlights how a single idea can change our whole perception of reality.
But how do we tap into that power then? The power of the abstract mind.
Well, the lecture asks this really interesting question.
Okay.
Do you believe your mind is confined to the circumference of your skull?
Whoa.
It's challenging us to think beyond those physical limitations of the brain
Right.
and to consider that the mind
Yeah.
may be connected to something much greater.
So like there's this whole universe inside of us
Exactly.
waiting to be explored.
But if our mind isn't limited to just our brain,
Right.
what else is it connected to?
Yeah, what is this realm beyond the physical?
Right.
The audio suggests that this abstract mind connects us to something much greater than ourselves.
Okay.
It's this realm that we're mostly unaware of.
It's a tantalizing mystery, isn't it?
It is.
And the lecture emphasizes that simply observing our thoughts without judgment, without justification,
I see.
that's key to accessing this deeper awareness.
What are your thoughts on that? On the importance of non-judgment in this whole process?
Well, it seems like judging our thoughts is just adding another layer of mental noise.
Right.
We get caught up in labeling those thoughts as good or bad.
Yeah.
That we miss the opportunity to just observe them.
To just see them for what they are.
Right. And to understand what they're trying to tell us.
That makes a lot of sense.
But the lecture also warns about the ego's tendency to justify everything.
That's interesting.
So is there a fine line there between non-judgment and just ignoring problems?
Oh, that's a really good point.
That need to be addressed.
Yeah, I think it's not about ignoring problems. It's about approaching them with a different mindset.
How so?
Think of it this way. Instead of getting caught up in the drama of, I shouldn't be thinking this, or this is a terrible thought, we can simply acknowledge it, observe it without that judgment, and let it pass.
So it's about creating space between ourselves and our thoughts.
Yes.
So we're not so entangled.
Right.
And the lecture describes this as moving beyond the dualistic nature of thought.
Okay.
That constant back and forth between positive and negative. So what do you think? What lies beyond that duality of the thinking mind?
That's a great question.
What happens when we move beyond just good and bad, right and wrong?
That's definitely something we can explore further as we continue this deep dive.
Exactly. It is.
Yeah. It really is fascinating to think about what's beyond that duality, you know? Seems like the audio is pointing us towards this state of awareness that's beyond our usual ways of thinking.
Yeah, and before the break, we were talking about how the audio suggests that practicing this non-judgmental observation of our thoughts, that's key to accessing this deeper awareness.
Yeah.
But it also brought up this idea of the ego.
Right.
And its tendency to want to justify everything.
So how do we balance that?
Yeah. How do we balance non-judgment with actually addressing real issues in our lives?
That's the heart of it, isn't it?
Right.
It's not about pretending problems don't exist.
Right.
It's about approaching them from a different place.
Okay.
From a place of awareness.
It's like we're learning to observe our thoughts and emotions rather than being controlled by them.
Does that resonate with you at all?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Have you noticed that taking a step back can help you see things more clearly?
Oh, for sure. I think that's one of the most powerful things about this whole idea of self-observation.
Right.
When we can just observe without judging, it just creates this space for a more objective perspective.
The audio uses this analogy of watching clouds drift by.
Okay.
It emphasizes that our thoughts are transient.
Right.
Like those clouds always changing. Trying to control them is like trying to control the weather.
You can't do it. You just got to let it happen.
Exactly.
But by simply observing, we gain a sense of freedom.
And that freedom lets us respond differently.
Right.
The audio talks about reacting versus responding.
Okay, yeah.
Reacting is impulsive, but responding, that's a conscious choice.
So instead of being hijacked by our emotions and acting out of habit, we can actually pause, observe,
take a breath,
and then choose a course of action.
Yeah, one that's more in line with our values or intentions.
But is it really possible to detach from our emotions like that?
It takes practice.
Okay.
But I think the key is remembering that we are not our emotions.
Oh, that's a good point.
Just like we are not our thoughts.
Right.
We are not our emotions.
They're just energy.
Yeah, just energy moving through us.
This reminds me of the concept of mindfulness, where we're just observing without judgment.
I think there's a strong connection there.
Right.
Both mindfulness and this self-observation, they encourage us to be more aware, to create space within ourselves.
And the audio mentions how our thoughts impact our reality.
It's a bold claim.
It is. Have you found that to be true in your experience?
It's fascinating.
Can we really change things by changing our thoughts?
The audio doesn't give specifics, but it suggests our thoughts and beliefs create a filter for how we see the world.
Like if we focus on negativity, that's what we attract.
What you focus on expands.
Right. If we're dwelling on problems and anxieties, we're just feeding them.
But if we shift our focus, we create a different reality.
Okay, so it's not about denying challenges.
No, not at all.
But about focusing on what we want.
The audio says to be curious about our thoughts, be compassionate.
Instead of beating ourselves up,
Right.
try to understand.
Where are they coming from?
Yeah. What are they trying to tell us?
This makes me think of shadow work.
Oh, yeah?
It's about acknowledging those darker parts of ourselves.
The parts we hide.
Exactly.
So by shining a light on them, we can start to heal.
It's a process of transformation.
Yeah.
The audio says it's not always easy.
Right, there's going to be resistance.
Fear, even pain.
But it's a path to freedom.
Yes. Fulfillment. Connection.
And that brings us back to moving beyond duality. It's not just positive thinking.
It's a shift in consciousness.
Transcending those categories.
Of good and bad, right and wrong.
But how do we access that?
That's the question.
The audio mentions it,
Yeah.
but it doesn't give us instructions.
Right. It leaves us with more questions than answers.
Like we're being invited to explore on our own.
But where do we even begin?
What practices can help?
That's a great question, and one we can definitely dig into further.
Yeah.
But first, what are some of the key takeaways for you so far?
Well, I'm really struck by this emphasis on self-observation.
Yeah.
It's about noticing, not judging.
And remembering it's a journey, not a destination.
There's no right or wrong way to do it.
Just approach it with curiosity.
And compassion.
And a willingness to explore.
The audio said it starts with awareness.
And with that step,
Yeah,
a whole world opens up.
it really does.
It does.
It's a journey. And before we were talking about how we access this deeper level of awareness,
Yeah.
this realm beyond the dualistic mind that the lecture hinted at.
Yeah, the audio didn't really give us a step-by-step,
Right.
but I think it gave us some good clues.
Okay.
It all comes back to that self-observation, just noticing without judgment.
So instead of getting lost in all that mental chatter,
Exactly.
we create a clearing.
Yeah, like a space for a new way of seeing.
Have you ever noticed those moments when your mind just gets quiet?
Oh, absolutely.
Like during meditation or when you're fully absorbed in something?
Yeah, you get that sense of stillness, clarity, peace.
Could that be a glimpse of what the audio is talking about?
It's possible.
This non-dualistic awareness.
This connection to something bigger.
We talked earlier about thoughts and emotions emitting energy.
Right.
Could that be connected?
Maybe the lecture talked about positive thoughts connecting us to good. So maybe those positive states align us with a higher frequency.
And as we cultivate that connection,
Yeah.
our perception shifts.
Right. From fragmented to
Whole
whole.
seeing and interconnectedness of everything.
It's like we move beyond separateness.
Yeah.
We're all part of this web of life.
This shift can be so transformative.
It can.
It brings peace, purpose.
Connection.
So it's not just about personal growth then.
It's about expanding our awareness to encompass everything.
As our awareness expands,
Our compassion expands too.
understanding ethical action.
It's like aligning with the universe.
Recognizing that interconnectedness with all beings. We started with self-observation.
Right. Understanding our own thoughts.
And now we're understanding our place in the universe.
It's a journey of self-discovery and cosmic discovery.
So for our listeners, what does this all mean?
It's an invitation.
To explore.
Pay attention to your thoughts and emotions.
Seek out those moments of stillness.
Connect with something deeper.
And remember, it's a process.
Not a destination.
There's no right way.
Just approach it with curiosity
Compassion.
and a willingness to explore the unknown.
The lecture said it all begins with awareness.
And with that step,
A whole world opens up.
it does.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the inner world.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope it's inspired you to continue your own exploration.